Well, thank you so much, Barb, for taking the time today and for being on the author's table.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, I'm
How are you?
glad. I'm doing great. How about you?
Oh, doing very well.
Yeah, every day's a good day, right?
Exactly.
That's right. All right, let's begin by starting. Now, how did you begin in writing, and what was your main influence?
I always loved telling stories since I was a small child. I was born and raised in Hawaii, so legends
Mm-hmm.
and folklore and everything is very popular there.
Mm-hmm.
And I always told stories. The scarier, the better for me. And sometimes I would scare even the other students in school.
Mm-hmm.
So it was my fourth grade teacher that told me, well, maybe we should put pen to
That's right.
paper
Yeah.
and give it a try.
Now, did you grow up like watching like the old classic horror movies, like with Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff? Those.
Sometimes,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Now,
And just the stories or like the Hawaiian legends that can be
sure.
sometimes scary. Um, I was raised that way. So
Well, wonderful. Now, what was your turning point when you became a supernatural thriller and horror author?
it's probably the genre I love the most. Um, Honestly, there is some romance, obviously, in the books. There has to be,
Yes.
but it's not overwhelming. I'd probably say 10 to 20%. Um, but I'm not a big romance author. I'm not a big, I don't know, just any type of other genre. I love the supernatural. I
Now,
love those bump in the night.
sure. And now you really got that from when you were in Hawaii then.
Yes.
From can you give an example like of one of your like Hawaiian folklore type, you know?
Well, there's so many different legends. So one of my favorites is, and there's different variations, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my favorites is like the legend of Pele. So one of the legends about Madame Pele is that she can appear to people young or old. So she can be a young woman one day and she could be an old woman the next day. Sometimes cab drivers would even report seeing her in the back of their taxi cab
Mm.
and then she'd be gone. Um, so she's probably one of my favorite goddesses out
So
of all.
so that sort of started the ball rolling, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome.
just she could just appear and disappear. She could be young, she could be old, and it kind of scared sometimes people because they would see her one minute and then they won't see her, and you know little things like that.
Now, did you read any books or anything of her or that type of um, you know like what you're in now? Did that sort of start? I'm gonna write about this that to get the
It
ball.
did,
Yeah,
it did, just
yeah,
because I loved all the different variations
sure.
um, of her and the different stories that people would tell. I mean, some people would focus on how she became
Mm-hmm.
Madame Pele,
Mm-hmm.
and others would focus on more like what happens if you steal the lava rock and go home from your vacation,
Oh,
and and she doesn't like that. So
okay.
it just with that having so many different variations, I was like, there could be so many different stories and so many
Absolutely.
different twists and turns, and it just I fell in love with that concept.
That's awesome. Now, Barb, are you a self-published author?
I am both. I
You're
have a
both.
publisher,
Okay.
World Castle, and then I also self-publish. I've also, as a way to help other authors, I've also we're in the soft stages, but I'm opening the doors to my own company called Immortal Cravings,
Mm-hmm.
in which we will be a publisher, and we're also going to help other authors and guide them through the business side of things.
Okay.
People forget that there's a business side of things,
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
so a few other authors that I work closely with, we decided to form our own company.
Very good.
So we are launching that and accepting submissions and helping young authors, new authors, because one of the things that I like to do also is I like to mentor new authors.
And we're going to get into that too. Uh, all right. Very good. Now, what was your approach once you had your first book ready for print? How did you become, or how did you go about doing that?
um, I said, well, let's test the waters and self-publish first and see how that goes, and just so I can learn how to navigate the world around me, right? Um, and then within 6 months, I decided to just go ahead and start submitting it to publishers based on the responses I had gotten. And one of the things that I did is I looked at all the different publishers, and there's that rule, you only submit to one publisher at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there are rejections, and the thing is you take it with a grain of salt, right? And
Right.
then I found one publisher, Bold Castle, and I just liked what they had to offer. I liked how they were personal, and they, granted, social media is the crux of all things, right?
Right. Yes.
But it's like you become friends through social media with your publisher. You get to know your publisher. You get to know your editor on a personal basis. So I liked that approach, and that's what made me choose Wolf Castle out of all of them.
Okay.
Probably
Mm.
one of the why certain books of mine will stay with Wolf Castle, just because I like that family feeling.
Okay. Very
And
good.
part of that family feeling is how I was brought up and how I was raised in Hawaii, because everything in Hawaii is all about family.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Um, Now you have three books, or I'm sorry, you have a three-book series called Blood Prophecy,
Yes,
and your first book of that series is called Queen's Destiny,
correct.
and your second one's Queen's Enemy, and the third is Queen's Ascension.
Correct. And that's the first trilogy in the Blood Prophecy series.
Would you like to talk about that?
Sure. So it started with a dream. And I know that sounds so funny, but I actually dreamed the beginning concept, the plot line of Queen's Destiny. Probably just from not having a lot of sleep, right? And your overworked mind goes all over the place. So it started from a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I started writing, and it just morphed. And the other part to it too that drove that series, and I'm actually going to be releasing book 4 in about a month.
Mm.
And the thing about that series is that it's like a twist on all things that you may have read, right? You have your Anne Rice, the Interview with the Vampire, you have this, yeah. And so Blood Prophecy is more about a series about a 3,000-year-old prophecy, and then some, that really talks about good versus evil. But I put it in a way that you have your supernatural characters, and a queen has to rise, the right queen has to rise above all to become queen of all of the supernatural creatures. And she is destined to bring unification to all of them, so that, we know that vampires and werewolves don't get along, right?
That's right.
But she is to bring peace to all and unify them. And I actually even add historical elements to it. So you may see characters like Alexander the Great, Philip the First.
That's
You
awesome.
will see all sorts of historical events, I should say, but with a little twist. And that twist is that they have a supernatural tendency. So, Mozart becomes a vampire.
It's almost like the comic book series, DC and Marvel kind of.
Exactly.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And then with the series, each of the books has a group of novellas. So the first series with the 3 novels has a group of novellas for 5 of the characters, and it's like a backstory before they all met.
So you would definitely have to read the first one to understand the second and third.
It helps, but you don't have to. But it definitely does help. Mm-hmm. And if you like certain characters, like I have a lot of my reader base that goes, I love Queen, I love Amber, and I'm like, but did you know her birth story? Did you know how she became the queen? No. And I'm like, well, read the novella. You like the witch, read the witch's backstory. It's all about a turning point in their lives that brought them into the prophecy.
That is wonderful. Now was that part of like your growing up in Hawaii, kind of you bring in not necessarily the the Hawaiian, but the sort of like that the supernatural type of, but different characters.
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome. Now also you have a Heaven and Hell series.
Yes.
And would you like to talk about that, please?
Sure. So the first book just came out in November, and that is obviously by the title, based on Heaven and Hell, but it's based on a pact that was made between heaven and hell in order to keep the balance between good versus evil. So it sounds religious, but I do not get religious in a book, except for the fact that you talk about angels and demons. And we all know the basics, that there's a war between the angels and the demons.
Mm-hmm.
But to keep them balanced, so one kingdom doesn't overpower the other, they had to make a pact. And the pact was a demon hunter was born, a child. That child grows up. He is immortal. He is known as the demon hunter.
Mm.
And he has to learn his birthright. So all along, he thought he was the son of a demon. And, I'm hunting demons and he's all happy. But then he learns that there's more to who he is
Mm-hmm.
because of that pact.
That can be very detailed too.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So it's the first book, and then the second book will be coming out later this year.
Oh, wonderful. Well, very good. Now, what I found interesting too is on your other books, they're children's books.
Oh, yes.
And that was something that you grew up with, or you really enjoyed when you were a little girl.
Yeah, I loved the stories of King Arthur.
That's correct. And would you like to talk about that one? I thought that was pretty cool.
Sure. This one was one of those off the wall evenings. I have two children,
Okay.
and my daughter is 4 years older than my son. And when she was 9 years old and in the fourth grade, and she was like reading, the stories of King Arthur and Merlin, and you know how they're like big books.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, my son was 5 at the time, and bless his heart, he was like, I love King Arthur, but he didn't know how to read the big books.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, Mommy, can you do something about this? And I'm like, you know what? I can.
Yeah.
So I wrote Little Arthur and Merlin the Magnificent series. And it talked about the beginning, like, the first book is, the two little boys, they're actually 5 years old. And the illustrator that I used took a picture of my son and made him into King Arthur.
Oh, how wonderful. That's neat.
So that meant a lot to my son.
Oh.
He even gave me all the drawings afterwards.
And you too.
And so it was just,
Yeah.
so it just kind of spun off from that. But it was made for the 5-year-old age range, right?
Okay,
So
okay.
like two little boys, how did he become, Arthur Pendragon? And then the second book is like they meet the knight. So how did they meet like Lancelot and all of that without getting into the older concepts, right?
Yes.
So I kept it really at a preschool to, age 5 level and made it very simplistic.
Well, that's really cool. And how have that series, how they've been doing in for you as like sales and stuff? Is that pretty popular?
It is it's still very decent. It's funny because preschools will get it.
Yeah.
Libraries will get it. I will have, people, just saying, oh my God, finally somebody thought of something with King Arthur and Merlin for little kids.
Yes, that's very good. Yes. Now, and I know from becoming an author,
Yes.
you've also branched out, and in which you did touch base on it a little bit. Is that publishing services called Immortal Cravings? Can you talk a little bit more in detail about your
Sure.
services, please?
So authors, we all like to write, and we
Mhm.
want, and it's the reality is, will we make $1 million in the first night? No. You have to market, you have to promote yourself, you have to get to know your readers, you have
Mhm.
to create that reader base. So, you can do all the crazy TikTok videos, you can do all the Instagram postings, but the thing is are you connecting with your readers, like
Right.
on an intimate level?
Absolutely.
So I have a reader base in which I connect on a very intimate level with. Like I go to coffee with some of my readers that are in my area. And I will go to, if I'm traveling and I'll go, say, hey, I realized you're in this, when I send you gifts or something, do you want to meet up for dinner? I actually have one of my readers, she's coming in obviously to visit family in, I think in a few months, and we're going to get together. So I'm going to actually
Nice.
meet her. And so I do things on a more personal approach, get to know my readers. I send them birthday cards. They send me birthday cards, emails, you name it. But it's like, it's building that connection with your readers
Mhm.
that I think, that I wanted other authors to focus on. Yeah, the sales are great, but the thing is do you know what your readers want?
Yeah,
Do
and
you know what they're craving?
I think
And
that's so important though, that connection.
correct.
It's not just you're an author selling books. You know, it's that you're right. It's that personal connection that you can have like a one-on-one with somebody, and I think also it's that networking where they can say to their friends that, oh yeah, I met so and so, and it branches from that. And I think that's a wonderful, way to do it. And it
Yeah,
and
and
it
that's why I launched Immortal Cravings,
mm-hmm.
as a way to help other authors, branch out. So,
Yeah.
um, like, it was like 2 weeks ago, I had done a book signing in Sarasota, and that's the county I live in here in Florida. And I probably spent more time helping other authors there. That was, part of their bookstore fair, in how to get out and connect with your readers. And, I met a nice other author, and she was just starting out. She was getting ready to have her first signing. She didn't even know what to do.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, well, here, you have a children's book. So let's cater to the families. Let's do these. And I was giving their tips. And then the other authors were listening to this as well. And they were like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, I just opened Immortal Cravings to do these things, to help guide you,
Mm-hmm.
not just publish your work, but to guide you through that process. It's not a matter of just, here, you're published, you have your release date, you're off on your merry way.
Right.
And a lot of publishers will do that, and they'll kind of go like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I actually will stick with them and guide them, through the first 6 months.
I think that's probably the biggest obstacle that authors have is that networking part. That okay, just like you said, once the book is done, they don't know what to do after that, and
Exactly.
that's the hardest part, I think.
Or, the thing is okay, you have your date, we've been working towards your release. What are you doing before your release?
Right.
Are you writing the next book, or are you talking about the book that's going to come out? Your book is your baby.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole reason why I opened up, Immortal Cravings, to help other authors. And to me, it's not about the money;
Mm-hmm.
it's about helping, and that's
Yes.
just that's just something that's within my personality.
So that you that's your gift.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that's awesome. That's wonderful to help others. And also, do you have a website, Barb?
I do.
And,
It is www.thebloodprophecy.com,
okay. And
and
that's
the Immortal Cravings one will be launching soon.
awesome. Now, when is your next event?
That one is probably in August. And that's going to be here in Sarasota. And then the next one is in September and October and
Yeah.
November.
What
So I,
what?
I
Yeah.
catered around my kids' schedules, because May is just absolutely crazy. I've got 2 kids graduating this month.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna be busy.
One from high school, one from college. So
Oh
it's like,
wow.
I can't do anything. I'm like, my head is like the
Oh
chicken with the
sure. Oh yeah. What I found pretty cool was you have an event on November 11th,
yes.
and I thought that was pretty awesome. And and it's the Stanley Hotel. And would you like to talk about that? I thought that was awesome.
Oh yeah. This one, if you are a true horror fan, one of the movies you have to watch is The Shining. And
Absolutely.
that is one of my favorite movies. And
You
so
know,
when this,
you just gave me a chill. Uh, it's pretty cool. It's awesome.
and one of the companies that I use is Anytime Authors Productions, and they do a lot of signing events around the 50 states, right? It's just various locations. But I was like, oh, that is so cool to be in The Shining.
Oh man, you're gonna have a blast. That's gonna be so cool. I would love to see if you take pictures or videos. I'd love to see that.
Oh yes, most
That's
definitely.
awesome. That's like for all those people that are out there. I think they have to go there. I mean,
Yes.
it's or see the movie first and then go there. Or I
Yeah,
mean,
I would
it's
say see the movie first, because then you're
oh
like,
yeah,
oh, see the hotel,
oh
and then you
yeah.
vibe going in. Because if
Uh,
you don't see the movie, you don't know the story, which
that's
is
correct.
weird to me that people don't know The Shining,
I
right?
know, right?
Um, and you just you're like, oh, it's another beautiful hotel. I'm like, no, you need to see the movie
That's right. Yeah.
to not sleep at night.
That's right. Especially that one famous room, right?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. Now, of your experiences, Barb,
Mhm.
as an author and mentor, what is your biggest reward?
Seeing the smiles on not just the readers when they meet the authors, but seeing the authors feel confident,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it
Mm-hmm.
was so funny because, like, I was telling you about the book fair just a couple weekends ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the people that the authors that I was talking to, it was like she was so nervous about her first signing. She had no idea what to do. She had no idea what to do with her table and all this other stuff. But after just talking for about 30 minutes, she felt so at ease.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, I can go into this now more confident than when I just sat down without talking to you.
Yeah,
So
and I think a lot of authors, or yeah, new authors that are just starting, they really don't know what to do after the book is done.
correct.
And I think that's probably the biggest, I don't want to say downfall, but they don't know how to reach out, network, and book signing events, all that stuff. And I think you're the platform for them. So
Yeah.
once they can connect with you and others, that there is another side to just publishing this book, and I think that's probably the hardest part too, is getting out there and network.
Correct. And I tell authors, I said, you created this baby.
Mm-hmm.
That book is your baby. And think of it as your own personal child, right? You
That's
have your
right.
child. You have to raise your child till they're 18. I said, so you kind of have to market your book till it's 18. You have to give it that same attention and TLC.
Absolutely.
And that's just one of the things that I found a lot of authors don't have
Mm-hmm.
that knowledge of, or that experience, or, they Google and they research, and there's a lot of information out there on the internet, but will everything work for you? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them, one of the things that, they always think, oh, I need a bookstore signing. I need a bookstore signing. And I'm like, you really don't. It depends on your genre, right? So
Right.
if you write science fiction, if you write thrillers, if you write supernatural and horror, right? I said, one of the perfect places for authors to go to is Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because, well, even children's authors, if you think about it, because families bring their little kids. Their little kids get to dress up at Comic-Con
That's a good point.
because it's not Halloween, right?
That's
So
yeah.
they get to wear their costume one more
That's
time.
right. That's awesome. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but you can attract readers that way. And it's not about having the biggest and the boldest displays. It's not about labeling yourself and putting plastering all of yourself as best-selling author or this or that. It's a matter of, are you stopping the people? Are you talking to the people? Are you taking pictures with the people? Because one thing about Comic Con is everybody wants a picture. It doesn't even matter if they want your stuff.
That's right.
They want a picture.
Yeah.
And it's like things like that is how word gets around. And that's one of the things that my company is going to set up authors to do, is think outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need a
Absolutely.
bookstore signing. Have you thought about doing a different kind of signing?
Yeah.
And I've had authors look at me and go, like, what do you mean? I said, well, you created this table book full of pictures. It's a beautiful table book. It's like for your coffee table. Have you talked to Starbucks to see if you can do a signing in a Starbucks? And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, no. And I'm like, but that's what you have to do.
Now, do you find it easier as a self-published author, or going with a publisher that can actually help you? Or I know there's two sides to that, but is it harder for a self-published author?
Um, that's kind of a twofold question. I look at it as, I think both experiences are rewarding in
Mm-hmm.
itself. Both are going to take work regardless of your publisher,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
The difference is your publisher will handle the editing and all of that stuff for your book, right? But the thing is sometimes when working with the editor, you may not click with that editor.
Yeah.
You may have an editor that says, you know what, you need to put somebody who's drunk in your book. And you're like, why? My
Yeah.
book doesn't talk about this.
Yeah. Right.
But they're like, oh, but this is this. Or they want to change the ending, or they want to change parts of your story. And you either can stand up for your own writing and say, well, I don't really agree with that approach, but I can make these other tweaks and I can maybe change this to do this, and it still will be a great selling book, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, that's one of the pitfalls, I would say. When you have a publisher, you kind of have to listen to their advice because they're your publisher,
Right.
right?
Right.
When you're self-published, you have creative control. And one of the things that's one of my sayings, it's all over my website, everything for Blood Prophecy, is about me as an author is I stick to my roots. I
Mm,
know where I came from. I know who I am. I write what I want to write.
that's right.
And I stand up for that. So not always will I agree with the editor. So one thing, about that is that creative control. And you may want your ending to be a certain way. And maybe self-publishing is the best way to do it. Will you have more costs up front? Yes. That's a no-brainer. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you have to get your book edited. You have to invest in that. You have to have a cover. Sometimes you may not want your publisher to do your cover. Like with World Castle, I gave her the book covers. I hired a designer to create. So I kept my book covers. They're mine. It's something because I wanted them a certain way
Mm-hmm.
because that's my baby.
That's
So
right.
you work out those details with your publisher. So it depends on what suits you. And to me, it's all about creative control.
That's correct. Now, going through your services, is all that you provide part of like a package kind of?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We have packages that we like if you submit to us your book, we will work with you. But one of the things that, we have the editor, we have the book designers, we have all of that. But one of the things that sets us apart, and I think that's going to become more evident as we grow, is the fact that we're going to keep you true to your identity. We're going to keep you to your roots.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you want your ending to be a certain way, and even if our editor doesn't like it, that's okay.
That's yeah. Yeah.
It's your baby.
Yeah.
We expect you to nurture your baby. We will help you. We will guide you. Will we do everything 100% for you after it gets released? No, because we want you to own it. We want you to talk about it. We want you to feel like you have to be part of it to grow. But we're going to guide you. And one of the things, too, about our packages is that each package is going to come with a 2-week virtual book tour.
Oh, nice.
So we partnered with one of our companies that Brandy K designs, in which she does promotional tours. And with each package, we're going to give them a 2-week book tour. We're going to tell them which companies that they should use to get the better bang for their buck.
Very nice.
We're going to give them, here's the recommendations. It's tried, it's true. We personally have used them. We personally vouch for these companies, because you can have any promo tour company out there. You can have a virtual book tour company, but they're not going to treat your baby as you would.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
And that's one of that sets us apart.
That's awesome. And when will that be finalized?
Oh, well, we've already done like a soft launch, so we're already taking clients.
Okay.
We just haven't had the balloon banners out yet.
The big
but
party,
no, we're
yes.
taking clients. We're already working with authors. So we've already done that just because the need for it actually turned out to be greater and faster than we could open the doors officially. So we just kind of said, okay, we're open.
Okay, well that's awesome. That's a great feeling though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a matter of like once people found out like, oh, you do these certain things, and I'm like, because it's tried, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can pay $15,000 for a complete course set on how to become the 6 figures, the
Right.
10 figures, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
successful author. Okay, but the thing is you're just writing and writing and writing to produce a book. But do you know what your readers want?
That's correct. That's correct.
An example would be like, originally Blood Prophecy was going to stop with the 3rd book, Queen's Ascension. I had over 100 readers email me like, you can't end it. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I want more stuff. And they were like, no, we want more of the tall, dark man. We want more of Amber. We want more of this. And I'm like, all right.
Do you see a movie coming?
I would love that.
Oh, man.
But, the thing is based on those 100 readers, right? I decided, you know what? I'm going to create the 2nd trilogy of the series, and the saga is going to continue. And book 4 comes out in about a month, Rise of the Hunter. And it is told from the villain's point of view as the story continues.
Ah, on the villain's
But it's all about evil gets the upper hand for once,
then you may end up doing another one to counteract that one.
But you know what? if that's what the readers want,
Yeah.
and that's my fan base, that's my reader base, and they
Yeah.
love connecting with me. And even as I introduce other books, other standalones, and other series like Heaven and Hell, they're all jumping on that ARC team. They're all jumping to read it. They're all promoting it for me
Yes, that's correct.
without them realizing it
That's
because
right.
it's word of mouth.
That's right. Absolutely. That is so wonderful, and I am so happy that you were able to be on the program today, and it's been awesome. And I
Oh,
thank
I'm
you. Yeah, and I thank you so
so
much,
fun.
Barb, for taking the time today, and I wish you the very best. And I know you're going to do excellent. And
Oh, thank
just
you.
keep me updated though, especially on
Oh,
Nov
I will.
and especially November 11th.
I
That's
got to
gonna
send you pictures.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. But again, thank you so much, Barb, and you have a wonderful day. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right. You take care.
Thank you. Okay, bye bye.